Good afternoon and welcome to this meeting of the Licensing Committee of Allerdale Borough Council. My name is Lee Jardine and I'm the host for this meeting, and for the purpose of this meeting I'm also the Democratic Services Officer. I will be assisting the committee with the use of technology. I will not have any control of the meeting and the meeting will not begin until instructed by the Chair. The meeting is currently being live streamed via YouTube and a recording will be made available afterwards. Everyone has indicated they're attending the meeting has now joined and the meeting is now locked. Shortly, I'll hand you over to the Chair, but first introductions. Can I ask the attendees to introduce themselves, starting with the members? Starting with Councillor Bainbridge.
Councillor Mary Bainbridge, present.
Councillor Daniels.
Councillor Alan Daniels.
Councillor Gaston.
Good afternoon, Councillor Peter Gaston.
Councillor Granger.
Councillor Malcolm Granger.
Councillor Horsley.
Good afternoon, Councillor Daniel Horsley.
Councillor Lynch.
Good afternoon, Councillor Elaine Lynch.
Councillor Mumby. I'll come back to you, Councillor Mumby. Councillor Smith.
Afternoon, Councillor Alan Smith.
Councillor Tyson.
Afternoon, Councillor Alan Tyson.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Good afternoon, Councillor Wilkinson.
And we'll go back to Councillor Mumby. For those watching, we do have Councillor Mumby on the meeting. Now we'll move on to the officers.
Yes.
Sorry.
Councillor Mumby.
Thank you. We'll move over to the officers. Jill Morgan.
Good afternoon, Jill Morgan, Legal and Licensing Manager.
Gillian Collinson.
Afternoon, Gillian Collinson, Senior Licensing and Compliance Officer.
Gail Roach.
Good afternoon, Gail Roach, Democratic Services Manager.
Lindsay Tomlinson.
Good afternoon, Lindsay Tomlinson, Deputy Monitoring Officer.
Thank you for everyone's introductions there. To speak on this, please can members use the raise hand icon to indicate they wish to speak and only speak when requested by the Chair. Once you've finished speaking, please can you lower your hand. To vote on any items, the Chair will ask myself to go through each member alphabetically. Each member will reply with their name and I vote for, against or abstain. Now, normally I would hand you over to the Chair at this point, but the Chair of the Licensing Committee, Councillor Mumby, is having some technical issues. So we'll just be joined as a participant today. The Vice Chair, Councillor Kirkbride, is also unable to attend. So members, I need a nomination for the Chair from the floor, please.
I would like to nominate Councillor Malcolm Granger for Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Daniels. Can I have that seconded, please?
Yes, I will second that.
Thank you, Councillor Lynch. Members, if you're happy with that, please, if you're not happy with that or you wish to speak on that matter, please use the raise hand icon. If not, we'll proceed with Councillor Granger as Chair. And it appears that we have no objections to that, so I'll hand you over to the Chair for today's meeting, Councillor Malcolm Granger.
Thank you, Lee. Item 1 is the minutes to sign as a correct record the minutes of the following meetings. Licensing Committee held on the 29th of October 2019. Licensing Panel held on the 21st of August 2019. The 12th of September 2019. The 14th of February 2020. Licensing Regulatory Panel held on the 13th of September 2019, the 4th of October 2019, the 19th of December 2019, the 24th of December 2019, the 10th of February 2020, and the 14th of February 2020.
Yeah.
Will anyone has got any problems with the minutes, will please use the raise hand icon.
Further, Chair.
Chair, we have Councillor Wilkinson wishing to speak before that, please.
Thank you. Councillor Wilkinson.
I was raising my hand to accept these minutes.
All right. Okay. Okay. So so would you second Councillor Smith, Councillor Wilkinson?
Yes.
Thank you. Back
So
to you,
the-
Chair. Sorry.
Thank you. So the minutes are passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 2, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies from Councillor Williams and Councillor Kirkbride.
Thank you, Lee. And item 3 is declaration of interest. Councillors, staff to give notice of any disclosable pecuniary interest, other registrable interest, or any other interest that the nature of that interest relating to any item on the agenda in accordance with the adopted code of conduct. There's none there, Lee.
No.
Grant, thank you. Item 4 is questions to answer questions from members of the public submitted in writing or by electronic mail no later than 5 p.m. 2 working days before this meeting.
No questions have been received, Chair.
Right. Item 5 is review a statement of licensing policy 2021, pages 57 to 130, licensing committee procedures, pages 131 to 134. I now hand you over to Gillian Collinson.
Thank you, Chair. I will take you through the report and the appendices, and then if you've got any questions, you can ask at the end. So this is the review of the Statement of Licensing Policy 2021. The reason for the decision is to recommend a new Statement of Licensing Policy for 2021 to 2026, which is to be adopted by Council, and that's after considering the proposed amendments to the policy by officers and responses received to the statutory consultation. The recommendation of the report is to review the amendments and proposals and determine their inclusion or otherwise, giving full reasons for decisions, and to recommend a new policy for adoption. The background to the report is that Section 5 of the Licensing Act requires a licensing authority to prepare and publish a statement of licensing policy at least every 5 years. It must be published before the authority carries out any function in respect of individual applications and notices made under the terms of the Act. During the 5-year period, the policy must be kept under review and revisions should be made to it as appropriate. The current policy came into effect on the 7th of January 2016 and is now due to be reviewed, and a revised statement to be published by the 7th of January 2021. Guidance issued under Section 182 of the Act provides guidance on the development and preparation of statements of licensing policy for publication by local authorities. It also provides guidance in respect of the general principles that are recommended should underpin them and core content to which licensing authorities are free to add. The determination of the policy is not a licensing committee function, but it is intended that the recommendations of this committee will be referred to Council for their consideration when they formally adopt the new policy on the 9th of December 2020. The revised policy will then be published. The Act stipulates who should be consulted when reviewing the policy, and the views of all these persons or bodies should be given appropriate weight when the policy is determined. The details of those consulted are in paragraph 4.2. Prior to the consultation, the draft document was formulated by myself, taking into consideration the latest guidance from the Secretary of State, together with any changes necessary in view of amendments to legislation and local changes. Those proposed changes can be found at Appendix 1, which is page 63 of your agenda. The draft document was then published for consultation between the 16th of October 2020 and the 13th of November 2020. And the Act states as a minimum who must be consulted, and those are contained in paragraph 4.2. When we did the consultation, we consulted all the responsible authorities. which are the statutory consultees to any application, and they are Cumbria Constabulary, Cumbria Fire and Rescue Service, Health and Safety Executive, Environmental Health Department, the Planning Department, the Lake District National Park Authority, Cumbria Safeguarding Children Partnership, Cumbria County Council Public Health, Trading Standards and the Home Office. All councillors, all town and parish councils, housing associations and the British Transport Police. The consultation was also advertised in the Times and Star and Cumberland News and in 3 of the Allerdale Borough Council newsletters. It was also published on the Allerdale Borough Council website. The responses received to the consultation were compiled into a document with an initial assessment and recommendation as to whether they should be included or not, and the reasons given for each. And they can be found at Appendix 2, which is page 69. We haven't incorporated any amendments from the consultation into the draft licence and policy. They will be incorporated following your assessment. And the draft policy is at page 77. Following the conclusion of the, following the preparation of this report, the consultation period was still open and we received a further 2 responses, and Lee will share those with you in due course. The policy seeks to promote the 4 licensing objectives contained within the Licensing Act, which are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. It also seeks to reinforce and develop measures to improve the safety of the public and minimise the risk of crimes against them, to mitigate the effects of regulated activities upon the communities in which the activities are held, and to protect children from inappropriate activities. The policy also seeks to provide useful information to those who provide or wish to provide regulated activities. It seeks to assist them in understanding the policies which will be applied and to understand that each application will be treated equitably, having regard to the policy. It is also the aim of the policy to provide information to communities about the authority's approach to particular licensing considerations and to assist them in addressing matters affecting them arising from the provision of regulated activities. Following adoption, the policy will be delivered continuously over the next 5 years, and that will be used by officers when we advise and administer on applications. It will be used by the licensing panel and the licensing committee when they determine applications or reviews, referred to them as a result of representations received by responsible authorities or interested parties, and it will be used by any revisions required to the statement of licensing policy. Paragraph 6.1 illustrates the contribution that the policy will have to various strategies across the authority, one being the council strategy, the West Cumbria Community Safety Partnership Plan, the Joint Public Health Strategy, the Local Transport Plan and the Economic Growth Strategy. In paragraph 6.2, finance and resource implications, application fees under the Licensing Act are all statutory, and they are intended to provide full cost recovery of all the licensing functions related to the Licensing Act, which includes the preparation and publication of the Statement of Licence and Policy. But this is based on the statutory requirements. Where these requirements are exceeded, the licensing authority must absorb these costs itself. When we've reviewed the policy, we've tried to do it in the most economical way possible, predominantly by email to the various consultees, and to reach as many of the others, we've put advertisements in the local newspapers and newsletters and on the Allerdale website. The direct cost of advertising was £767.05. Paragraph 6.3, legal and governance implications. When making a licensing decision, the licensing authority must have regard to the Licensing Act, the accompanying Secretary of State guidance and the Statement of Licence and Policy. It may depart from its own policy if the individual circumstances of any case merit such a decision in the interests of the promotion of the licence and objectives. However, it is important that full reasons should be given for departing from its published Statement of Licensing Policy. The Statement of Licensing Policy should indicate how the licensing authority intends to approach its various functions. Many of the decisions and functions are purely administrative in nature, and the policy should underline the principle of delegation in the interests of speed, efficiency and cost effectiveness. Many types of application which do not receive representations must be granted by the licensing authority and should be dealt with by officers in order to expedite matters. The Secretary of State's guidance accompanying the Licensing Act does contain a recommendation as to how the delegation should be approached, and this table of recommended delegation of functions has always been contained in the policy. We are proposing one change to the delegation this time, which is at Appendix 1, page 34. Page 34 of the draft policy, which is page 111 of the actual agenda, and that is the determination of a film classification. This is usually referred to the licensing committee to determine, but it is being proposed that in all cases it is referred to officers to determine. In most cases, this would be where the licensing authority is approached to classify small, local, independent films or foreign films where a wider UK release is not intended. To achieve consistency, the guidelines published by the British Board of Film Classification would always be used. As with all delegations, officers may refer a matter to the panel to full committee, and the committee to council. The proposal is to make the process faster, particularly as an officer would have already watched the film, highlighted areas of concern and made recommendations in line with the BBFC guidelines to the licensing committee. That's just something for consideration later. Paragraph 6.5, the purpose of the licensing policy is to provide a framework for the licensing authority in relation to the carrying out of their functions under the Act. It provides information to those who run licensed premises, their legal advisors and the general public, thereby assisting with the application process. It improves transparency by demonstrating a consistent approach to the application of licensing powers, promoting fairness and equal treatment, which is particularly relevant for licence holders who have numerous premises across the authority area. And by highlighting the best practice expected across our licensed premises, this achieves consistency and visitors and customers can feel safe and secure. An equality impact analysis has been completed and is attached as an appendix. There are no adverse impacts identified from the policy. The health and safety impacts, health, well-being and community safety, and environmental and sustainability impacts can all be kind of wrapped up in the 4 licensing objectives that the policy is there to promote. And there are no other significant implications. That's the conclusion of the report, Chair, but I do have 2 appendices that I can go through now if you're happy with that.
If you would please, Gillian.
Okay, so the first appendix, starting on page 63, this is a document which contains the proposed changes to the policy by officers prior to it going out for consultation. So if I just go through each clause, these are already incorporated within the policy itself. Okay, so the front page was merely highlighting that it was now a draft policy, changing the dates to 21 to 26. and giving the instructions for the consultation responses. The contents page was changed to reflect the page numbers, etc., and any change in content. The next part, 1.3, is the introduction. In the right-hand column, that shows the new updated introduction, and that was put together for me by a different officer of the council. If we go to the next one, 4.20, that was purely the Health and Safety Executive have issued a purple guide, and it's a very good point of reference for the Events Industry Forum, and it was just a slight change of name there, so that was just an update. 5.3, we included in there participation in pub and club watches, as well as best bar-nons and other relevant schemes. In paragraph 5.3, we made quite a few changes there, and they were mainly to do with the licence and objectives, the different ones. The first thing we did was we expanded the list of practical steps under the prevention of crime and disorder objective. These are just example steps that we put in the policy that applicants can take into consideration. It gives them an idea of the kind of thing the committee would be thinking about, that they would expect to see used at licensed premises if appropriate. We then introduced a new paragraph about drugs. We expanded on the section called public safety and increased the number of practical steps there that could be taken. We expanded on the list of practical steps to prevent public nuisance and introduced new sections called location of premises, noise and littering. We expanded the protection of children from harm objective and increased the list of practical steps, and introduced new sections called adult entertainment, exhibition of films and staging of plays. 5.8, I'll come back to this later as well. This was to do with designated premises supervisors who have the day-to-day responsibility for running licensed premises. That was just to expand that bullet point on the left-hand side. And that was to say that they're able to respond to problems and changes quickly and responsibly, including the implementation of government guidance and legislation. We wanted to include that bit there because there was quite a few responses regarding the pandemic, etc., and whether we could put something in the policy relating to that. That is a public health matter, which isn't an objective, which I'll come on to later, but it was felt that that may be an appropriate way to encompass the increased responsibility of the designated premises supervisor. Going on to paragraph 5.9, we put in an additional paragraph there. That's where the designated premises supervisor may be removed, and we just added in a little bit extra there to explain why, and that is likely where the prevention of crime and disorder will be undermined by reason of that person's known past conduct, and that a person is likely to be considered unsuitable if he has previous unspent convictions for a relevant offence, notwithstanding he has been granted a personal licence. Paragraph 6 was about personal licences, and that introduced new paragraphs, which was new legislation, and that is about right to work provisions and a new power that the licensing authorities have to revoke or suspend personal licences. And then there were new paragraphs introduced at 6.6 and 6.7, just expanding on the factors the licensing authority will take into account when considering representations to personal licence applications. Paragraph 7.7, we over the years, we have had a lot of issues with people who cannot submit an application properly. And unfortunately, because of all the deadlines and things involved in applications, they then have to put public notices up, put things in newspapers, and it's all very time controlled and dependent on when the application's received. And it turns out to be quite an expensive business for some applicants if they don't do it properly. So we just wanted to expand a little bit on that and encourage people, you know, to wait, thoroughly read the guidance notes before they fill the forms in, and then wait until we've confirmed that we've accepted the application before they then start going ahead, spending a considerable amount of money on advertising their application. Hopefully, you know, it'll help prevent any more errors. Paragraph 8 relates to the responsible authorities and other persons, and we just reworded that to make it clear when representations or reviews by all agencies or persons or groups are accepted and the considerations. 8.15, a new paragraph just explaining the factors which will be assessed by the licensing authority when considering representations. And then paragraph 10, a new paragraph about sexual entertainment venues. Appendix 1, the table of delegated functions, that's just been amended to update changes in consultees in the legislation. There are 2 new application processes since the last policy was introduced, and then the proposal to delegate the determination of film classifications to officers in all cases. Appendix 4 is just a change of consultees for this policy. And then Appendix 5 is the link between the licensing policy and other council strategies. Appendix 6, responsible authorities. Since the last policy, there's been the addition of the Home Office Immigration Enforcement as a responsible authority. So it was just to insert that with their address and telephone number and email. And that is the end of Appendix 1. So that is they are the changes that were incorporated into the policy when it went out for consultation. And then Appendix 2 is the result of the consultation.
Thank you, Gillian. Very good. Very in-depth.
Do you want me to go through Appendix 2?
Well, is it necessary? Would you? Yes.
I don't know. It might be.
Well, if you think it's right with us. Come on.
Okay. All right. I'll go through it. Okay. So it went out for consultation, and the responses that came back are in Appendix 2. Plus the 2 extras that are referred to. Okay, so the first response came back from Councillor Fitzgerald. She queried the existence of the Pub Watch scheme because she knew that the funding had been discontinued and she wasn't sure whether the scheme existed anymore. I asked the police about that and they confirmed, yes, it still exists. The funding has been discontinued. They're not quite sure how it's going to look in the future, but they still want that scheme to exist. So the recommendation there was to retain the reference to Pub Watch in the policy and not make any amendments to that. Councillor Munby spoke to me, pointed out a spelling mistake in the policy, which is fine. So I've just got yes, amendment recommended for that. So I'll amend that. And also, Councillor Munby mentioned that there was no mention of pandemics in the policy. Could any reference to it be put in with the expectation of the cooperation of licence holders to such situations and penalties for acting illegally or irresponsibly? and not respecting emergency measures. What we've put there is that it is a public health issue, so it's not a licensing objective. And environmental health, and Cumbria Police would take the lead on advice and compliance. We do pick up on any additional licensing issues or breaches, and they are dealt with on a case-by-case basis. So although COVID shouldn't be specifically mentioned, the responsibilities of the designated premises supervisor can be expanded upon, and this goes back to the previous one that I read out in paragraph 5.8. So it's recommended that we change that paragraph just to say that the expectation of a designated premises supervisor is to be able to respond to problems and changes quickly and responsibly, including the implementation of government guidance and legislation. That's the crux of the change. And to meet with responsible authorities and or local residents and ensure adequate direct management of individual premises in a timely manner. The next response was received from Keswick Town councillors, although it wasn't endorsed by Keswick Town Council because of the timing with the meetings and the consultation period. There couldn't be a meeting to approve these, but it's irrelevant for the purposes of this. So there was four proposed changes there. So the first one, paragraph 3.3, an amendment, so to delete, a minority of consumers will behave badly and unlawfully once away from premises, and it would be unreasonable to expect licence holders to have control over these individual people. That's what it says at the moment. The Keswick councillors are recommending that we delete that, but we insert regular incidences of bad behaviour by customers close to the premises will lead to a review of the licence. The reason being that the paragraph as it's currently written absolves the licence holder of any responsibilities for activities outside the premises, and the description away from the premises is far too loose. So, after looking at the section 182 guidance to the Licensing Act, it includes under its heading licence conditions. Licence conditions cannot seek to manage the behaviour of customers once they are beyond the direct management of the licence holder and their staff, but may impact on the behaviour of customers in the immediate vicinity of the premises or as they enter or leave. So what we were going to recommend there was that we add the word in regular incidences of bad behaviour by customers under the direct management of the licence holder and staff may lead to a review of the licence. The next proposal by Keswick was that licence applications will be copied in a timely manner to the relevant parish council for comment. And we are recommending that there is an amendment to the policy to say applications for new and full variation applications to be circulated to the town or parish council for the area for consultation within the statutory timescales as contained within the Licensing Act, which means that town and parish councils would also be included in the consultation process, and they would be given the same amount of time as everybody else, i.e. 28 days.
Yeah.
The next proposal was regarding littering, and that was to add single-use plastic items are discouraged and takeaway containers should be recyclable or compostable. Compostable, yeah. I raised this with environmental health and they were in agreement with it. So yes, so we recommend that that amendment is incorporated. The next one, currently in the policy, it says no more than one review from a person other than a responsible authority will normally be permitted within any 12-month period on similar grounds, except in exceptional and compelling circumstances or where it arises following a closure order. And then to add in instead, no more than one review from a person other than responsible authorities will normally be permitted within any 6-month period on similar grounds, except in exceptional and compelling circumstances, because 12 months is too long to wait. Now, after referring to the 182 guidance, it does say that it's for the licensing authorities to judge what should be regarded as a reasonable interval. However, it is recommended that one review originating from a person other than a responsible authority should not be permitted within a 12-month period on similar grounds. So if we went with the guidance, it would be no more than 12 months unless there's a compelling circumstance or it follows a closure order. In addition to that, it's worth just remembering that where we do go through a review process, it's not a quick process. There is a 28-day consultation period. There is then a hearing which could be up to another 20 days, and then the decision of a review doesn't take effect for another 28 days. So we're looking round about at the 3-month time scale. Now, once a review's actually taken place, then if there is a problem, we shouldn't just be doing review after review. We should be cooperating. Everybody should be involved in trying to resolve issues rather than just go straight for a review. So if we concluded a review after 3 months, and then you've basically got another 3 months to accept a review application from someone if we changed the wording to reflect this. So what we've said there is that the amendment is noted but recommend no change. And that's due to the expectation of cooperation in the first instance and the lengthy review process before it reaches its conclusion. There is always also a proviso in there already that says that if it's exceptional and compelling, we will accept one within a 12-month period. Okay, so the next proposal was that neighbours, ward councillors and parish council will be consulted. Yes, that amendment we've recommended that applications for new and full variation applications to be circulated to both the ward councillors and town or parish council for the area for consultation within the statutory timescales, which is 28 days. Sorry, I've gone on from Keswick now. I'm on to Councillor Coburn's comments now. She's at the top of the page. She should be further down. So she's asked for a similar consultation scenario. So we're agreeing that would be recommended to consult ward councillors and town and parish councils. She's also asked for all documentation accompanying an application to be available online. Now, our current system doesn't facilitate documents to be uploaded and made available online. We do have a public register which has the application on with the details, but the full application and accompanying documentation is circulated as part of the consultation. And if we receive any additional information in, as a result of a representation, we would usually send it on to the agency who requested it. Sorry, not everybody as a matter of course, or it would go to whoever is relevant. So we've put there to recommend that no amendment is necessary. Just over the page, Councillor Heaslip has agreed and supported Councillor Coburn's proposed amendments, which is fine. So I've just got their amend as recommended above. Councillor Lynch has said that she recommends and agrees and supports, Councillor Coburn's comments and recommendations on the consultation, which is fine. So we've same comment there, amendment recommended. The next proposal by Councillor Lynch is to change all the gender references within the document, because they're in as his at the moment, to change them to there, and that would make it gender neutral. Now, what we've said there is there is a definition at the beginning of the draft policy which includes words denoting any gender shall include all genders, words in the singular shall include the plural and vice versa, and words denoting persons shall include firms and corporations. So we've got that we recommend no amendment is necessary there. The next proposal is for early morning restriction orders, to be any consultation to be sent toward councillors, town councils and local residents. The 182 guidance does specify the process to follow, but we recommend that ward councillors and parish and town councils for the relevant area be notified of the proposal. Residents, we would put an advert in the local newspaper without actually informing them on an individual basis, and that's because an MRO could cover a large area. So we feel that the newspaper advert would cover the residents' part of it. And then Bothwell Parish Council, again, no mention of any incident relating to COVID-19. Is this just a public health issue? Yes, it is public health. And then it's just the same comment as above, that we would just amend the paragraph relating to designated premises supervisors to instill the extra responsibility there. And that is it for Appendix 2, except for the 2 extra ones that I've got.
Well done, Jill. That was brilliant. Thank you.
Okay.
I'd like to throw the open now to anybody with questions to Jill. Be appreciated, please. Hey, Jill, you're getting off easy today.
Doesn't feel like it.
Well done, lad. Well done. Right. No questions, so we're going to step 3. Chair invites councillors attending under procedural rule 4312 to come forward and present objections. Each councillor is permitted 10 minutes. The chair will ask if members of the committee have any questions to ask the councillors. The councillors return to the public areas. Any questions at all, please? None? That doesn't come into this. So where's Lee gone?
Sorry, Chair, did you ask for myself?
Yeah, I'm just asking where do we go from here now, Lee? Because there's no questions to Jill.
Yeah, I mean, the licensing, Jill can guide you on what she requires to happen next in terms of recommendations.
Right.
Thank you.
Well, Jill, before you start again, we'll have a 5-minute pit stop so you can have a drink of water, someone else.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So we're back here at 15:20 in 5 minutes, please. Thank you, Jill. We'll reconvene and we'll ask you now for your recommendations, please, Jill, if you would. You're on mute, Jill. You're on mute.
I'm not on mute.
Sorry, my apologies. The recommendation of the report is just to go through Appendix 1, which were the initial amendments, and Appendix 2. There are recommendations in there as to what we think we should amend or retain, and it's just whether the committee agree with those recommendations or wish to change them.
What page are we starting at?
63.
Right.
So the first thing to look at is the introduction. And if you're happy with that, we can include it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think everybody's in favour of it.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
The paragraph 4.20, that's just the change to the Health and Safety Executive document.
Yes.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Everybody all right?
Yep.
Paragraph 5.3 is the main change really, and they're the changes in some introductory new paragraphs and increase in the practical steps that applicants can take for their premises, just ideas.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. 5.8. This is the one that covers a multitude of things, including the fact that we can't be explicit about COVID regulations. And this is just the one that puts the extra bit of emphasis on the designated premises supervisors' obligations to implement government guidance and legislation quickly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, grand, nice.
Because that actually would cover not just the pandemic, but any other emergency or anything like that. So it's a generalized.
That's it. That's right. Yeah.
Covering. Yeah.
Thank you, Elaine.
Paragraph 5.9. That's just the additional paragraph about where you don't approve a designated premises supervisor. It's just a little add-on, just to say if somebody will be considered unsuitable if he had previous unspent convictions for a relevant offence.
It covers all possibilities, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, there's quite a long list of relevant offences, and but the thing is, just because somebody's got a personal licence, what you're saying there in the policy doesn't mean that they can automatically be a designated premises supervisor.
Yeah.
For example, you can have a personal licence holder who's quite young and inexperienced, and they want to be in charge of a nightclub, and you might feel that they haven't got the relevant experience to be able to do that, even though they've got a personal licence. That's just one example.
Yeah, thank you.
The next one, paragraph 6, that was the introduction of new legislation. That was about right to work. We must now check all applicants' right to work before we'll grant them a licence. So, and we do now have the power to revoke or suspend personal licences. So that was just to insert that into the policy as well.
That's, yeah.
Yep.
Happy, yeah, okay. The next part was just the guidance on incomplete applications.
Yeah.
Yeah. Paragraph 8 was just responsible authorities and other persons, just rewording that when we make it clear what's acceptable and from which agency and which group, etc. The next one was what we consider when we're looking at representations. And the next one was just a new paragraph explaining about sexual entertainment venues.
Have you got a list of them, Jill?
Pardon?
Have you got a list of them,
What?
the venues?
He wants to know.
We haven't actually got any.
You don't ask, you don't get.
And the next one, Appendix 1.
You've embarrassed them, Malcolm.
I know. The next one you might want to, I don't know if you want to discuss this, is the delegated functions one. This is the one where we've got 2 new application processes in there. But the one that we've added in as an extra one is the determination of film classification to officers. Depends whether you feel that that should be.
Well, I think Euless know-how, and Euless know-how is far, far better, more superior than ours. I think you should be able to.
Well, we check the same. We check the film and the BBFC criteria, and that's what would be coming to you anyway. So the officers already looked at it and made a recommendation on it. Okay, and then the list of consultees is just who we've consulted this time around. Appendix 5 is the links between the licence and policy and other council strategies. If you're happy with that, that can just go in as is. And then the responsible authorities, that was just the addition of the Home Office Immigration Enforcement Unit and their contact details. And that was it for Appendix 1. So Appendix 2, the first point, Councillor Fitzgerald and the Pub Watch scheme, the recommendation there was to retain the reference to Pub Watch and no amendment is necessary. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The next one was Councillor Mumby with a spelling mistake. So that's recommended to change that. And the next one was about pandemics again. And that was the same paragraph that's been expanded that we talked about before for the DPS.
Yeah.
The next one was the Keswick ones. And so that we'd recommended there that we change the wording to say regular incidences of bad behaviour by customers under the direct management of the licence holder and staff may lead to a review of the licence. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's may instead of will. The next one, we recommended that all applications for new and full variations be circulated to town and parish councils. The next one was to include single-use plastic items are discouraged and takeaway containers should be recyclable or compostable. And then the next one was about not accepting a review application from someone within 12 months, within a 12-month period on similar grounds, except in exceptional and compelling circumstances. The proposal there was to change that to 6 months from 12 months. And we recommended that there'd be no change to that. So,
I think some of the licensees know that they're using those plastic containers at the end of the evening, and they're giving them plastic containers to go take a drink out with, and there's quite a few of them lying about.
On to Councillor Coburn's comments. She'd suggested about neighbours, ward councils and parish council be consulted. We've said yes, we would recommend agreement to that for new and full variation applications. And then the next one was about the documentation to be available online. We will look at that, but at the moment the current system doesn't facilitate it, but the application detail is actually online, and any additional would be circulated with the consultation documents. The next one is Councillor Lynch, and that is about changing, replacing all the his with their to make the document gender neutral. Because of the definition that we've got at the beginning of the document, we've recommended no amendment necessary there. Don't know how you, is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine because clearly they're going with a generic he that covers everything.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Well done, Elaine.
every single gender person. Yeah.
Yeah. Then the recommendation that ward councillors and parish and town councils are consulted for early morning restriction orders. Yes, we've recommended that's included in the policy. And for residents, the advert in the local newspaper would be sufficient for that. Okay. And then again, the last comment is similar to the one above about COVID-19, and we've amended paragraph 5.8 just to reflect that. The two that I haven't mentioned that are additionals are quite similar actually. Well, the first one is from Great Clifton Community Youth Group. That was an inquiry about insurance, wanting advice about which insurance company to use, and what we've said there is unfortunately we are not in a position to advise on insurance, and organisers should seek their own independent advice. And the recommendation there is that the response is noted and an acknowledgement sent to the respondent to that effect, but no change to the policy. And the second comment was from Broughton Parish Council. And again, they were asking for parish council and ward councillors, and if appropriate, the planning department and public rights of way department to be consulted on applications. So what we've said there is licensing is a statutory process, and the consultation process is set out. So the planning department or the Lake District National Park, whichever is appropriate, are already statutory consultees. Neighbours are consulted by way of a public notice at the premises and local newspaper advertisement. The Public Rights of Way Department is not a statutory consultee, and we might have difficulty, depending on what they had to say, determining whether it was an actual relevant representation because of the 4 licensing objectives. So what we recommend in there is, because the public rights of way wouldn't be a material consideration for the majority of applications, and it's not included in the statutory consultee process, they should not be added as an additional consultee. But if the town or parish council feel it's a relevant consideration in a particular matter, they can raise attention to it. And finally, they have also said that all documentation for licenses should be available online. So we've just got the same thing there, that the current system doesn't facilitate documents to be uploaded, but the public register does contain details of the application, and the full application and accompanying documentation is circulated as part of the consultation. Any additional information received as a result of a representation is usually copied to the agency requesting it, and if relevant, to an interested party. So we recommend no amendment is necessary for that one as well.
Well, thank you.
And that is it. Thank
Well
you.
done, lads. Well done, Julia. That was a good, really good presentation. Brilliant. So now it's out to members for questions. Councillor Lynch.
I was just going to recommend that we accepted all the recommendations as we've been through them all and people have had a chance to ask any questions. I was just going to recommend that we that we recommend all the we accept all the recommendations in the report.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Alan. That's spot on. That's brilliant. I've lost my page now. So we've had a proposer, we've had a seconder.
Chair, would you like me to go over to the vote if that's
Yes, please, Lee, if you would. Please.
if you're happy with that and there's no further debate?
No, there's no hands raised, so I would just like us just a comment, really, Jill. Can I voice it? It's my opinion that when a person comes to panel asking for a license, a driver, vehicle, or a premises license, it is up to them to prove that their goodwill, and not ours to give them one as a token of good faith and good character. We seem at times to listen to them and not to the officer's recommendations as a whole panel. And it just, I think we should listen more to err on the side of caution to your lot's recommendations. That's just a statement, Lee. It's all right.
Thank you. Yeah. Whenever you're ready, Chair, I'll go through the voting.
Well, we've had a proposer, Councillor Lynch, and we've had a seconder, Councillor Daniels. We'll go
Okay.
for the vote now.
Thank you. So, members, I'll just go down the list alphabetically, and if you can indicate whether you're for, against, or abstain on the motion. Can you just repeat your name as well, please? So we'll start with Councillor Bainbridge.
Councillor Mary Bainbridge, for.
Councillor Daniels.
Councillor Alan Daniels, for.
Councillor Gaston.
Councillor Peter Gaston, for.
Councillor Granger.
Councillor Malcolm Granger, for.
Councillor Horsley.
Councillor Daniel Horsley, for.
Councillor Lynch.
Councillor Elaine Lynch, for.
Councillor Mumby.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Councillor Smith, for.
Councillor Tyson.
Councillor Tyson, for.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Councillor Wilkinson, for.
Thank you. All in favour, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lee. It's about wrap up, isn't it? Anything more, Lee, to this?
No, I mean, if that item's closed, just confirm with the licensing manager. Gillian?
Yes, that's all. Thank you, Lee. Yeah.
Yeah, Chair. So it's over to you to close the meeting.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Jill. It's been a cracking presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, very well done.
Yeah, really good. So now I'll leave it in your hands. Thank you very much for coming. The meeting will close at 15:40.